to the Paranormal Classroom, where we take attendance for the unexplained. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Lindsay, and we're two teacher moms talking about stuff that freaks us out.
We should get right into it.
Okay, let's do it.
Welcome, scholars.
Hello.
What is haunting you today, Lindsay?
I will keep it short because you told me that this is going to be a
You're
long
good.
one, and I got here late. I'm so sorry. This book dropped today. It's called The Cult of Us. Cult Like Us. Why Doomsday Thinking Drives America. Cults Like Us, Why Doomsday Thinking Drives America. And it's written by Jane Borden. And I listened to a talk with the author today on one of my favorite podcasts, the Bananas podcast. It's just about how basically our country is a cult. We were founded on a cult. The Puritans are one of the most famous, powerful in terms of longevity cults that has ever existed. Super controlling, doomsday focused, anti-everything organization. And that's what
Makes
we
sense.
were founded on. And it's
Well,
still
our news is also negative and
it filters.
doomsday-ish.
Well, that's because it ties back to Puritanism.
Interesting.
So yeah, fascinating.
All right, so check out that book if you're interested.
Yeah.
Here's what's haunting me.
Besides the heat.
Besides the heat. Today, I left my house, sat down in my car, and I'm like sitting on something really uncomfortable. I get up, and I couldn't find it. And then I go to...
The Princess and the Pea syndrome.
Yeah, it was a Princess and the Pea thing. And I sat at the office, and I was like uncomfortable, like I felt a pee. Guess what it was?
Don't tell me. Did you have a crayon stuck in your butt?
It wasn't a crayon. It was gum. My daughter's gum somehow got in the washing machine, I'm sure, and into my underwear. And it was all like...
And hardened because it went through the dryer.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the
there
frick?
forever now.
The underwear shouldn't be. The underwear should have seen its last day.
Right, it'll get thrown out, but I sat on it all day today, and I was totally Princess in the Pea. Here's the other thing that's haunting me. The dog. I had another dog incident, and for those of you who haven't heard the saga, you haven't been listening to all our episodes, that's okay. My husband got a dog when I was out of town after I said I didn't want one. And then I was, they were all upset and angry. So I'm like, okay, I rethought things. I'm like, well, you can get a dog, but please get a small one that's easy to lift. Well, they didn't. He brought home like a Malinois breed, like a mix. Ugh. Anyway, today the dog escaped out the front door.
Oh, shoot.
She doesn't come when she's called, and that's probably our fault. We haven't done a great job training her, but
She's also a baby. I mean, she's still
little.
a puppy.
She's a puppy, but she's huge.
Right.
She runs out the front door into the street in front of a car, and guess what kind of car it is? It's a
Tesla?
cop. It's a cop car.
Oh, shoot.
So this cop is like glaring at me. I'm in the street with my two kids, completely embarrassed, and we can't control this dog. And it's going into people's yards and it's digging, and it's like we cannot get it to come. We can't catch it. Finally, we are able to catch the dog, and she lays down, and we can't lift her. The three of us, she's so big, we cannot lift her. We can't get her
She went limp?
back into the house. She went limp.
Oh, she's naughty.
The cop watched the whole thing. I thought I was going to get a ticket. I don't know what you get a ticket for, but...
If your dog's not licensed, it's got to have a license on the
No,
tag.
it didn't have a license on it because my husband wants to wait until she's bigger because he's worried about it hurting her neck because she's growing so fast.
No, you just stick a finger in there, and if you can get your fingers in there,
I don't
it's fine,
understand
and you
the
adjust it.
logic there, but I don't know. But today was hard. So,
I'm sorry.
this is haunting me.
I think it's time for a new home for the dog. It's going on record. Anybody looking for a great, beautiful pup? Needs a farm, needs training.
Needs a farm.
It's very smart. She's very smart. Going to be a great dog for the right family, but yours ain't it.
No.
And you knew that.
And I knew it.
I know it doesn't offend you because you knew.
Mm-hmm.
So, seriously, anybody who wants a great, great dog and just volunteers to take her at no cost to you, let us know. Drop us a DM.
Okay, you ready for the story today?
Yeah, let's set our intentions.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna focus on positivity and light. We're gonna let go of stress and just have a good time and recharge with each other.
I like it.
Okay,
Here we go. Okay. Tonight's story is a tiny bit scary.
Scratch everything about the recharge and relax setting those intentions. Let's set the intention for terror. Okay, I locked the car doors. Ready to go.
Yeah. This is going to be an American folklore tale
Okay.
with lots of witnesses. And I love, or maybe
I know you do.
witnesses, people who documented it, people who witnessed it.
Yes, even though we all know that witness testimony is one of the most fallible testimonies.
I know.
Or evidences.
I'm really drawn to stories that have a lot of witnesses. There's something a tiny bit more credible about that.
Well,
I
I think it's more interesting because it's like we all love a primary source document for the same reason, or primary source artifact. And then you can put a name and a quote to it, whether or not it's true or not. It just sort of puts us in a time and a place, and that makes the story more interesting.
Right. So the people involved were writing manuscripts, journals, letters. We've got all those. What did you call them first?
Primary source
documents. Okay, the entity we're going to learn about tonight, it's going to start out as like a very simple story, and it's going to evolve into something complicated. So as we start out...
Sort of like me and you.
Sort of like me and you.
Sort of as simple
sort of like the dog situation.
Just wanted to sing and dance. Now we're here.
Okay, so we're going to start the podcast, and I want you to try and guess what is going on, right, as we go.
Okay.
And as we go through the journey, I'm going to take you on a journey. I'm going to stop at places and kind of ask you what you think is going on now, because I guarantee you it's going to like evolve and change. We're going to go to the year 1817.
Okay.
Tennessee.
Heard of it.
We're going to a large homestead on 1,000 acres.
Jeez,
I know that's a lot.
That necessary?
I think that's what people had though.
It's about 972 acres too many. Good Lord.
But that's what they did then.
They didn't have riding lawnmowers.
No, I don't know what they did. They had animals to eat the grass.
People.
So correct. We're going to talk about that too. So this is a large homestead. The patriarch was named John Bell, and he lived with his wife Lucy and their 6 kids.
Jeez, also about 5 kids too many.
These kids' names are Jesse, Betsy's the only girl.
Okay.
Richard, John Jr., Drury, which is
D-R-U-R-Y?
D-R-E-W-R-Y, Drury. Everybody try and say that. Drury.
Drury. That poor kid.
Yep.
Just call me DJ.
DJ. Drury.
What's the J for? Nothing. It's easier to say than Drury.
Drury and Benjamin. Benjamin was the last one. And it was Richard, the third kid I named, who ended up writing a book about everything that his family went through. It was called Our Family Trouble.
Okay.
But he was about 6 at the time the event started. So
okay. He started with his little quill pen and his dipping his
He
ink
did actually.
in.
He was like taking a journal,
6.
and so was his brother. The two of them had journals, and they referenced the journals when they released the book.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Because what else do you have to do at that time?
Nothing.
No
You don't even have to do chores because
right.
They had humans do that.
All right. This first signs of trouble. Here's the first strange event that occurred. 1817. Something was spotted outside the Bell's family cabin. An animal was seen near the house, sitting on the property, just staring at the home. It had the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit.
What?
Just staring at the home intently.
How big is this thing?
The size of a dog, but the head of a rabbit.
It didn't have antlers. Jackalopes have antlers.
That's their first remembrance of something weird, though.
Okay.
After that, very soon after that, they started to hear odd noises around the house. So they'd be inside and they'd hear rustling, scratching, like things outside.
Gross. Okay.
Okay, but it could be anything, right?
I think you said you described it as a frontier cabin.
Frontier cabin
So
in
it's
Tennessee.
pretty rustic.
Probably, but they had helpers, so...
Maybe not that rustic.
Right.
Okay.
Soon, the strange sounds moved from the outside to the inside, and they started to hear rustling, scratching noises and what sounded like a rat gnawing on the bedpost.
Duh.
Mm-hmm. And they all kind of heard this at different times. They would jump up, light a candle, nothing was there.
Okay.
But the disturbances start to intensify and escalate. So the next thing the family experienced was knocking. They were hearing knocking.
Okay.
And the knocking appeared to be intelligent, they realized. So they would ask it things like, how many people are in the family? And it could knock out
6
or 8. Mm-hmm. They first they started by asking it like math questions, like what's 5 plus 3 or whatever, and it wouldn't answer. And then they went on to the yes, no questions, like knock once for yes, twice for no, and it would respond.
Okay.
So they could say things like, did I have mashed potatoes for dinner? And then it would
Knock.
get it right. What are you thinking at this point? What do you think? What does this remind you of?
Well, my first thought is it's a torqued off indigenous spirit, because we're on, it's all stolen land, essentially. So with there being an interesting, just makes me think it's something messing with them, but maybe just mad that they've set up home there, that they've got a homestead
right
there. I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's something intelligent, so it's not an animal. It's probably not a cryptid like Bigfoot, because I don't think Bigfoot's ever been known to do a wood knock to answer questions. Bang on that tree with another tree once for yes. I don't think that happens.
I don't think so either. But this so far, the events remind me of hundreds of other stories I've heard of people who just have knocking.
Starts mild like this. I have a feeling it's going to gear up.
It's going to gear up. The next thing that gears up is it's going to get a little bit physical. So the next thing is the families reported physical activity from the entity, like covers being pulled off the beds.
Oh, we got a plane flying over. We're right near a little small airport.
Huh.
There it goes.
Covers being pulled off the beds, hair being pulled a little bit, feeling a cold touch.
Okay, so it's making physical contact now.
And that escalated, and eventually it started to become a little more violent. And a couple members of the family in particular were tormented by the more violent, aggressive, like physical attacks. The father, John Bell, was attacked the most, and so was the daughter, Betsy. They were especially targeted, and they suffered from things like hair pulling, pinching, scratching, pushing.
So I think a lot of the times with stuff like this, it's possible, and stuff like this meaning these mysterious, seemingly physical attacks, that if another human being did that to another living human being, it would be an assault, right? We would take it very offensively. I don't know that it means the same thing on the other side. I think oftentimes it's communication that is misunderstood. Similarly to like our kids with behavior issues, right? When they're trying to communicate, all behavior is communication. So I don't know that it's a great idea that when people assume that it's negative or demonic or whatever, it could just be something trying to communicate and is just not
it
sure
doesn't know another way.
I mean, it started out pretty darn polite,
Correct. That's that's a really interesting thought. It really liked a couple members of the family, left them completely alone, including the mother, Lucy. It seemed to really like the Lucy, and John Jr. It was fond of them, or at least uninterested in them. But one of the little brothers, Drury, let's say the name together just for fun.
Drury.
He was so traumatized by the events he had growing up that he grew up as kind of like an odd duck as an adult. He never married. He lived in isolation, and everyone reported him as being one of those like jumpy, twitchy, nervous kind of guys who was always uncomfortable.
Well, he had unresolved trauma, PTSD symptoms for sure, it sounds like.
So now we've got the physical contact. Has your thought on this entity changed yet?
No. And I also think we have to be careful too of like assuming that because they weren't touched that they were the ones who were liked, or that the entity was more fond of them, because it could very well be the opposite, that it is trying to get the attention of the ones it does like or trust or have questions for or whatever, and is going too far. Now you would think that the response being probably so scared, so negative, pain, these kinds of responses from the living would change, like, oh crap, sorry, I did not mean to do that. But again, we have students who you can tell, no thank you, ouch, that hurts, that's not okay, we don't hit friends, and they do have a relationship and a bond with their teachers and paras and parents, but they still will continue to lash out because, and oftentimes at the people they trust the most, because they know they're safe. So I don't know if that all that psychology works on the other side. I just try to assume presume goodwill even at first, at least, and try to make sense of it and communicate. But they didn't know at this time. They didn't have. I mean,
Right.
it was all just Bible thumping and freaking out
Right.
about stuff. So if it didn't come from the natural, tangible, material world, it was bad.
That's a really interesting take I hadn't considered. So thank you. It's a very positive take on it.
Now, don't put me in that situation and test this theory, because I might have a very different theory on if it were me.
I also think some people listening might think this is just a human, like one of the kids knocking. It probably
That
echoes
would be
through
almost
the house.
more disturbing.
Well, maybe, but the physical attacks, they only happen when it was dark. As soon as you would put the light on.
That's creepy AF. If it's one of my children or my wife, like, that's worse than an unseen entity to me.
And that could be one of the explanations. We'll get to it at the end.
Bananas. And then if it's that Twitchy Drury dude, it was Twitchy Drury. And the whole time it was him, and it's just his guilt that's seeping out of his pores.
Oh, man.
He was disturbed from birth and started doing this weird stuff, which does happen.
It does.
As we've come across many a time.
You ready for the next escalation?
I am. Are you warm? I'm feeling warm. Do you mind if I crack a window?
That'd be great.
And if that gets loud or whatever, we'll just roll them back up.
Okay, so here's the next escalation of events.
Okay.
John Bell, the dad, he's the first one to start to hear whispers at night.
Oh boy.
Now we got whispering.
That's probably not Drury.
And one day he asked the spirit, "Who are you and what do you want?" And the entity whispered, "I am spirit. I was once very happy but have been disturbed."
No, it did not.
That's a whole sentence.
It did not, John. You were sleeping, right? He said he was sleeping in it.
It disturbed him.
Yeah,
right.
no. I don't buy it for a second. Maybe he was disturbed by something, and maybe he heard what sounded like whispering, and something definitely, I'm not saying something didn't whisper to him, but there's no way he came out of his slumber and heard a whole complete phrase.
2 whole complete sentences.
No.
This is why this story is so unique once we get into like the talking of the spirit, because there are not a lot of stories where you hear them saying whole sentences.
I had my one
you
time.
had your experience you shared in another episode.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I'll never forget it.
So you got 2 short sentences.
Mm-hmm. But I was wide awake in a silent room by myself at a dining room table.
Right. I mean, I just don't hear a lot of stories like that. That's what was really interesting about your story and this story. The whole sentences.
I mean, it's not impossible. It's just the part where he was dead asleep that's what's getting me. Because you'd have to shake that off, and then to remember, like we've talked about how we don't remember our intense dreams that we've had right after we wake up, let alone can quote a ghost.
But he might have been awake because he asked, "Who are you and what do you want?"
Oh, so he was waiting for it.
And
You're right.
He also continued to ask and get these whisper responses. So another time he asked, "What's its name?" And it replied, "Kate."
Oh, okay. Well,
so
at
now
least
we
he
have a
didn't
name.
said, "I am many," or like, legions. It's like, yeah, okay, good.
Terrifying.
Kate, I can handle.
It's just Kate.
Just Kate.
So Kate and John Bell, he's like, they're like whisper communicating, which is crazy to me. And
I think sometimes the whispering is misconstrued too, because it also feels creepy. But what if that's just as loud as they can be through the ether? They're yelling, they're trying their hardest, but it's still going to come across as whispers, which also makes me think they're around us all the time, talking all the time, but we can't hear it because it's not at a volume that our human ears can hear.
I don't know the rules. And I want to know the rules.
Amanda's obsessed with the rules. We know this.
I know the rules. But I also think that you're very accepting of this being like a spiritual entity, paranormal thing. I'm still feeling at this point like this is a person, a member of the family who's pranking him.
Is
you think it's Drury?
How does he not see Drury? What is Drury hiding under the bed?
Who knows? What are these houses built like?
There's no way you would know your kid's voice. You would know
if they're whispering.
Yeah,
they
you
could
would
be
know.
Under the floorboards. They could be up above. I don't know. Maybe they have secret little slats in between the walls that they can squish into.
Well, that's effed up, and Drury needs a therapist. Stat.
All right, the whispers are going to get louder, Lindsay. They're going to grow slowly louder. They eventually morph into a clear, distinct female voice.
Okay, it's not the kids.
It's a female, for sure, a female voice.
Okay.
It was friendly at times. So, for example, it really liked the little kid John Jr. It would stay up all night talking with John Jr. about whatever his little 6-year-old mind wanted to chat about. She was very friendly with
And
him.
he transcribed it with his little
He would
pen on his little calfskin paper. So probably some, like, can you believe, like, what things that are happening around the farm,
right.
or books that they've read, or music they've listened to. Things with that many people in the family, it's going to be gossip about siblings.
Gossip.
And maybe what's going on in town if they have connections to other families.
So that was John Jr.'s experience. But at other times, this voice was sinister. At one time, the family asked what its and at this point, everyone's hearing it, right? It's not just the dad. Once it gets to like the full, clear, distinct voice, everyone in the family can hear it and speak with it.
Okay, now are we sure that there isn't some sort of phenomenon that's happening that's creating auditory hallucinations for the family?
But you're treading into that mass hysteria or mass hallucination
which
world
can happen with just like carbon monoxide.
Maybe, but all have the same hallucination.
Well, they don't necessarily hear the same quote, right? They just hear this person talking, and then that could be influenced by their conversations with each other during the day.
No, I believe that they have multiple, like if 2 or 3 are in the room and one asks a question, they'd all hear it.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Right, and it gets sinister. So the family asked it what its purpose was, and it said it intended to kill the father, John. So sometimes it was very sinister, and it really did not like the father, John. It did not like him. Because it would say a lot of nasty stuff to him and about him.
Wonder why. Did they ever ask why? What do you got against John?
They asked lots of questions, but the entity was almost like a trickster, if you've heard of that, because it would give them different stories. So one time, it claimed to be the spirit of someone who was buried nearby, whose grave was disturbed. And in that story, Kate, this spirit or entity, told them she was seeking a lost tooth that had been buried under the bell house.
What?
Right. And another time, it claimed to be the spirit of an early immigrant who had buried treasure on the property. She even described exactly where to dig on the property, and the family went out and dug there. They dug like 6 feet down under this rock. She like described the whole location, and they found nothing. And when they came back home, Kate laughed at them, mocking every movement. Like, she was able to describe everything that they did while they were out digging as if she were like there, present with them. And when they came back to the house, she was laughing at them and teasing them about it.
This is one seriously bored entity. Like, move on. Come on. You got to mess with a family.
Right.
But again, that's bully behavior.
It is. She was really...
She's manipulating them and then mocking them, teasing them, sending them on wild goose chases, pitting them against each other, threatening them, threatening their friends, their family. All things that bullies do.
Right.
Specifically, teenage girl bullies.
Well, I mean, I still think it's a family member at this point, and because it would have been someone who was there with them, trying to dig.
But how would they hear a whisper in the middle of the room or whatever?
I have no idea. I
don't think it's a family member.
Well, it's going to get... I mean, it gets to the point where I'm like, maybe it's not a family member. But at this point in the story, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And I wonder what our listeners are thinking
logistically, I don't know how. If they're all sitting in the living room and they hear an isolated voice. Unless this kid's a ventriloquist before their time.
Right.
Throwing their voice across the room.
Maybe. Maybe. Okay, so John Bell, he's really wrestling about whether or not to reveal what's happening to his neighbors.
Okay.
He doesn't want to be ridiculed.
Well, sure. You don't want to be... That persists today. Nobody wants to be seen as crazy. I don't care. But most people don't want to be perceived as crazy.
No. And at this time, the communities, they relied on each other. They had, like, traveled in the wagons together.
Sure.
And nobody wanted to be known as, like, Crazy Pete on that there property. So he kept the secret for as long as he could. But they did have friends. And they were social. And at some point, their good friends came over as a family called the Johnstons.
Okay.
The Johnstons have their own reports. They're another group of witnesses. Johnston family, probably just as big as the Bells. Lots of kids.
And there's nothing to gain from them at this time, and a lot to lose. for making stuff up. There's no TV channel that's going to come and give them a documentary for
No.
Netflix. You don't want the notoriety of something like this.
Right.
Now, could you have a thing where you're addicted to attention? And sure, could there be some sort of auditory hallucination side effect of something atmospheric? Possibly. If another family comes, could they also be affected? Sure. Because they're staying in the same place. But nobody has anything to gain by making it up.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's a couple theories we'll go into at the end why they could have made it up.
Okay.
It'd be pretty hard to make it up. I don't know how they're pulling off this ruse.
Incentive would be.
Right.
There's no money in that. This is before airplanes. I mean, yes, it's before airplanes, but it's before it's before pre-Civil War. So it's before the huge spiritualism movement. So there wouldn't be like a come to our house, we're deeply connected, we'll do a seance and blah blah blah. That's not a thing yet, as far as I know.
As far as I know, I think you're right.
It would be
maybe this was the start of it, though.
It's very puritanical, very biblical Bible Belt time. Like you're wrestling with demons if you've got something like this going on.
Yes, and they all went to church.
That's what everyone would assume. So I don't know that you would advertise that you're wackadoo, because that's how people would perceive you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or that something wackadoo was going on in your life.
He didn't want to be
you want to blend.
Because you got to rely on your neighbors to get eggs or trade things.
They do have enslaved people.
Well, that's true.
Could they be... Shoot. What if it's spirits of former slaves that are
that's
messing with
theory.
them?
Right.
Because I would.
Right.
I would do whatever I could to seek revenge.
Nice.
Not everybody's vengeful, but I think if my spirit were trapped in that place, oh man, I would wreak havoc. Because maybe I'm connected to my descendants that are there, my family, that's still working the property, and I don't want to leave, but I'm going to cause some trouble while I'm at it.
That's a really interesting theory. It gives a motive. Mm-hmm. It also would explain why it would pick on some people and not others. Like maybe the dad and Betsy, maybe they were really mean. Maybe the mom and little John Jr., maybe they were really nice. So that's an interesting theory, Linz. All right, it was Mr. Johnston, the friend, who encouraged Mr. Bell to tell the neighbors, because now he's got more witnesses, right? The whole Johnston family is experiencing all the same things that the Bell family is. They can ask it questions, it will answer. They hear the voice clearly. Crazy.
That's weird.
I know. And so now neighbors start coming over, and it's like a long trek, I guess.
It is a bored time.
They were bored, so
this is the soap opera. Very first soap opera.
Right.
Spooky soap opera. This is the 19th century. Nope.
I think they show up with their peach pie and they're like, hey, can we stay the night and see what happens?
Here's your peach pie. Can we come in and see the ghost?
And that's exactly what happened. They had visitors coming frequently, and some of them would stay in the home, or if they had big families that wanted to come visit, they would bring their tents and set up tents outside the house.
But nobody's charging money for this.
Nobody's charging money.
Weird.
And
I would be, if I'm that wife, I'm mad. That's irritating. Mm-hmm. Go home. Let me have this. Or I'm moving. Just one morning.
Where do you move to, though?
John would be, I don't know, but anywhere but there seems fine. Just get in that wagon. You just set up, you can't get harder than homesteading. You just did it. I'd be tempted to take the youngest couple and vamoose. I'd be super annoyed, super freaked out. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of somebody at that time. Certainly I'm not advocating for abandoning your family in the time of stress, but knowing that women didn't have a lot of say in
No, they
matters.
didn't. I don't think you could leave your husband and still survive in a lot of cases.
True, but some did. Some were widowed and things like that. I'd probably take off, go somewhere new, say I was widowed, and start fresh.
Right.
Just be like, sorry, you're either with me or you're against me. We can all leave, and try this again somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or
we've talked about that before, though. Like
I'm
when
out.
we talked about the Sally house, we're like, why? Everyone's like, why don't they just leave? But
it's not easy.
It's not easy.
And I don't want to suggest that I think it's easy to just uproot, leave your family and go. But at some point, like, wouldn't you try it out? Like, hey, how about I take the 2 youngest and we go to the next town over. Or we go stay with the Johnstons. Let us go stay with the Johnstons and let's see if it's us. If it's there too, then it's us.
Right.
I would experiment with it at least to see if there's an escape from it. Is it the property? Is it the home? Is it us? What's the deal? Do we have an attachment? What's going on?
Right. And if it's a human, I would just do experiment with like, okay, let's send somebody out of the
Yeah, you make one kid sleep in the outhouse.
Yeah.
And you're like,
what happens?
Is it all quiet on the Western Front? Then it was Betsy. Betsy! Get in here. We knew it was you.
So Kate, she was more active when visitors were there, and she was enjoying the attention. Showboat. And this is when people start referring to her as a witch. She's known as the Bell Witch. Of course.
I've heard of
You've heard of the Bell Witch. This is her.
This is going to end in a tree, isn't it?
No, well, it might, but I can't include everything about the Bell Witch because there are so many stories and so many documents that I didn't even include, and I told you this was already going to be a long one.
Yeah, well, it's not an exhaustive research project. This is just a taste. It's fine. People,
right.
If they want more, they can get it. But I think I've heard something about... I could be mixing up 2 different stories, though. It's possible.
There are just so many stories of like people who came and had an experience, and they wrote it down in their letters or their journals. I've definitely heard of the Bell Witch. So many. There were like, traveling Shakers and religious people and neighbors in the community, and just a lot. That's why I like it. I like a lot of documentation. Okay.
Witch. Why do we gotta go to witches all the time?
I know.
Come on. It's just so... It's such just a patriarchal fear of women, fear of female power, fear of...
She's smart.
Intelligence. Yeah, intelligence, medical wisdom, mathematical wisdom, knowledge of the cosmos. Like, of course, if we can do any of those things, we're witches. It's just so stupid. Or if you're on the spectrum, you're a little different, you're neurodivergent, you'd be burned at the stake.
Right.
You just can't be a weirdo, because then you're evil.
I know. The history of witches makes me really sad. But I wouldn't have used the word witch to describe what's happening here. I think they use it. They're from a different time,
because that's easiest. Yeah. That's a term that they can use to blanketly cover the unexplained metaphysical or spiritual stuff that's happening.
Right. That's how they're explaining it.
I just realized I have not been concentrating on keeping up the ends of my sentences. I've got to work on not mumbling.
In our last episode, I told Lindsay to prevent mumbling, she can raise the end of her sentence like the Australians do. How they end their sentence like a question every time. And then it like punches a little volume at the end of the sentence.
Yep, and I need that because...
But as Americans, it's a weird way to talk.
It's super weird, but you always sound so crystal clear. Clear as a bell. And I'm over here like, rah, 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 like I'm chewing on dry shredded wheat.
She's not chewing on dry
I'm not, because you wouldn't tolerate being in the same car with me if I were.
Oh gosh.
Talking and eating.
Do you feel bad that I have misophonia?
No,
like,
absolutely not. I'm going to tease you about it every once in a while. No, I think I get so proud of you in those moments where you advocate for yourself. You say no.
I don't do it enough.
I don't do it enough. And so, of course, I'm going to like tease you about it a little bit because it's so funny. It's delightful. That's what it is. It is delightful when you stand up for yourself. And so I almost like tease you as a way to like remind, like, that happened. You did that. You advocated for yourself. You stood up for yourself. And the gentle ribbing is sort of in a way of like commending you again for the same thing. Because I was not offended. I get it. Totally get it. But it was just like, it was just comedy. You opened the door and I go, I'm going to eat if you don't mind. Well, I'll see you later. I'll be over there in my car playing on my phone, and the door's closed before I was, okay. It was awesome. It was really good.
Okay, well, I'll take that as a compliment. But I don't
Totally,
know
it's
that
a
everybody would
compliment.
see it that way. That's why I don't tell a lot of people that I don't like to be around eating noises.
I think it's very common. Listen, if you suffer, and I use suffer in heavy quotations, from misophonia or the absolute homicidal tendencies that come with hearing the sound of people chewing, drop us a note so Amanda knows she's not
Yes,
alone.
please, I need to not feel alone. That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
All right, the Bell Witch, Kate, is going to escalate even further.
I would be
Are we
too.
ready?
Start calling me a witch, and I'll be like, game on, suckers. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Here's her next trick. For my next trick, this is Kate begins to manifest things out of thin air. So one story, she manifests fruit. She's like, hey, is anybody hungry? And she manifests things like grapes and hazelnuts out of thin air, and they just drop into people's laps. That is wild to me, because now...
That's a strange choice.
This is where I changed my mind from, like, I'm thinking it's a human the whole time. But this is weird.
It's hard for a living human being to manifest fruits and nuts out of thin air.
Mm-hmm. And then she would claim that she's got them from exotic places. Like, I got these from the Indies. So it was just like an exotic, mysterious place to Americans. So if that's true, she could go anywhere in the world and just like...
But what a strange choice. Like,
right.
I would bring back... See, if I'm trying to still intimidate, which sounds like she's just trying to entertain. But if I were trying to intimidate or scare, I'm not going to be dropping grapes and nuts into your lap. I'm going to be dropping like a bloody dagger or a horse's head.
A headless frog. Right.
Yeah.
A horse's head just falls from the ceiling into John's
That'll
lap.
get their attention. It's time to move, honey. Is now the time? Do we go now? Like, what are we waiting for?
You would have been so much better in this role as the Bell Witch, because you were so much funnier and so much. You would have been just.
If I come back, I definitely hope that I can play with it and have some fun, because just how could you not? You gotta have fun with it.
Right.
Totally haunt somebody.
Besides manifesting things out of thin air, Kate also appeared like to be very disturbingly intelligent, and she would know things that not even the family could know. She would know things about other people when they came to visit. She would know.
So she's clairvoyant or
clairvoyant.
Psychic?
If it's a human, she'd be a clairvoyant human, and if she's an entity, who knows what the rules are.
Omniscient.
Omniscient. That's a great word. But she would know the private lives of people in the community, and she'd even expose their secrets. So, like...
That's awesome.
I know!
That is powerful.
Someone could come over and she'd be like, she'd be like, hey, your husband's cheating. I don't know if you know what I mean? Or hey, your husband got drunk last night.
She would make so much money.
Or hey, your wife's ripping somebody off. She would know all the little dirty deeds of the people who would come and visit.
And people still came.
And people still came.
That's interesting.
So this is also...
What is her MO? I mean,
I don't
besides
know her
attention.
MO. She wants to attack John. She said she wants to kill John.
How does she have time? And she's entertaining 4 shows a day, 7 days a week.
She hasn't killed him yet. Maybe she has to like...
Is John sitting in on these shows? Power. Like, or is he out working?
I don't know. I think the family's all just kind of in and out and used to it at this point.
I imagine that it's whoever is around, like, okay, yeah, just come on in. Maybe they even just are like, help yourselves. We got spit to do around the house. But feel free to make yourself comfy. Kate, this is the Johnsons. Johnsons, this is Kate. We'll be in the backyard if you need us.
We gotta attend to the chickens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed it's gotten like stronger and stronger and stronger as the story goes on, as the years go on?
Yes. Soon she's gonna be sawing people in half.
That's maybe she like has to draw enough energy before she can actually kill John.
Well, they're feeding it. So, which we know is a phenomenon. They could be creating an egregore.
Yeah.
So where that is so many people pour so much energy and thought into this thing being that it actually comes to be. Now that is a bananas sentence I just said. But if you are curious to learn more about the theories about egregores, I highly recommend it. Fascinating stuff, but energy is so powerful. And I don't think anybody would deny that. So energy can do things we can't explain yet. I don't think anybody would deny that. So there are some theories about what our energy poured into a location about a person Can't do. There's been one on the show Kindred Spirits, if anybody's familiar with that one, with Amy Bruni and
I forget his
her
name.
best
I love
buddy,
him.
and I just drew a blank on his name. They wrote a story about this. They made up a story, a history for this person, and said it out loud in this space, and pretty soon it started performing as that person.
Yeah.
That doesn't really exist.
I have plans to do an episode on this at some point on the egregore golem phenomenon, and there's an experiment that was done called the Philip experiment. So I'm just a little teaser.
Yep,
I'm going to share that one. I'm going to share that
Good.
one sometime.
That'd be great.
Okay, but back to the Bell Witch. One of the neighbors, John Johnston, he devised a test because he thought that it was Betsy. He thought it was the teenager playing all these pranks.
Teenagers can do some weird stuff.
That was his theory. It was the teenager. So
and what's scarier than a teenage girl? Teenage girls and witches. They're all the same.
So scary. He asked Betsy Bell a question that only somebody from his family would know. He asked, "What would my Dutch grandmother?" Oh, he asked Kate, "What would my Dutch grandmother say to the slaves when they made a mistake?" And Kate, the witch, without hesitation, answered in his grandmother's Dutch accent.
No.
She said, "Hut tut, what has happened now?" It was a perfect mimicry of the woman's voice and dialect, confirming this spirit had access to knowledge that no one else could have known.
What?
Uh-huh.
That is really weird.
I'm just picking my favorite bits for you. Like, there are so many stories like this from people that these are some of my faves. She also had a frighteningly deep knowledge of scripture. So when the ministers, there were more than one ministers in the town, would come visit, Kate would debate with them about the Bible. She would cite verses and religious doctrine with an uncanny understanding of theology. Now that's what, because I don't think that the kids, if it's the kids pulling this prank, they would have that kind of level of knowledge.
I'm just really having a hard time imagining this speech-giving, argument-granting, disembodied voice.
Mm-hmm.
That's like that's not a thing I've ever even heard of. That's some great and powerful Oz.
This is why this story is really not. I'm more tempted not to believe this story because I haven't heard other similar stories.
Yeah. Now I'm starting to get hung up on why this is the only. And you and I have heard a lot of stories.
Right.
This is one where it's like, I don't know now. This feels like a case of everybody wanted to be part of something, and so they just added their, well, one time I went, and this happened. It quoted, you'll never believe it, my Dutch grandmother.
Yeah, I got a little embellished out of control.
Yeah, and human beings love to do that.
Yes.
We love to be like, we were a part of something. And whether we were or not, there's a tendency to exaggerate the experience. I know I'm guilty of that. So
I totally agree with you. I think that's exactly. But weird things must
so
have happened
bored
to start
then.
it.
They were so bored. But also they're like, maybe it was just animals gnawing on the bedposts. But they're living in the Tennessee wilderness. You know, they're stressed.
Yeah.
The measles and smallpox and whatever else is running rampant. The
dysentery.
Probably, yeah. Snake bites and dysentery and measles and rubella and all the things. So maybe they just had a collective sort of fever dream to begin with, and then it snowballed from there.
I don't know what's going on. It has to be some person pulling this off. Her singing voice was also extraordinary.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
So now we've got...
She could also do longhand division.
She could probably do everything. We've got conjuring. We've got incredible, impossible knowledge. What is anybody listening thinking demon at this point? Or like what other things could be out there that this could be?
I don't think demons are omniscient. All-knowing.
I don't know. I really don't know. And I don't want to know because I don't like to research them. They creep me out.
Yeah, I don't either. But I also don't know that I 100% believe in them either.
Same.
I believe in negative energies. Mm-hmm. But I think things get different names based on culture.
Right.
Not necessarily because that's what it is.
Right.
I feel like this may have been something at the beginning. Something odd. Something an entity attached to the property that spun into this huge tale and kept growing and kept growing. This, a ball of yarn that just kept growing and growing and growing because of time and culture at the time and place. And I think people were just really bored.
Yeah.
And it may have been started out as something, but then they realized they're getting attention from their siblings, from their parents, from each other, from then the community, then, neighbors, and the community at large, then the priests and pastors. And,
And it gave them something to talk about.
Absolutely.
When they were like in the street market or
literally
the bar.
Their book was the Bible. Like, they didn't read much outside of the Bible. They didn't go very many places outside of church.
Right.
Like, they didn't go to schools necessarily. They were often homeschooled. So I'd be dying for just some interaction and excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's not really happening, just to say that you were a part of something cool.
Right. Well, we're almost near the end of the haunting. It's like a 4-year haunting that we've been through. And we're almost near the end, and then we're going to go into some theories.
Okay.
Like other people's theories, and then you can share your own too. So this is kind of near the end of the haunting. It just keeps escalating. So the next thing, obviously, is it's going to like physically manifest.
Oh, yeah.
That's the next step, right?
Yeah.
So there is...
Kate. They're all in the living room like, you got this, Kate. Magic fingers, like my kids when they're trying to turn on my TV for me in my classroom. Magic fingers. Come on, Kate.
You are so funny. That is hilarious. Okay, so here's the ending, like, attack on John Bell. John Bell claimed that the Bell Witch physically manifested as a frightening, solid, shadowy, I heard solid and shadowy in different accounts, a figure in the night and attacked John Bell. It was described as a woman. At first, it reportedly pulled the covers off him and then jumped on him.
And at first, he was super excited.
Maybe. And it violently attacked him, right? So punching, scratching, kicking.
Okay.
John claims he was able to wrestle the spirit down to the floor and then get the blankets haven't been pulled off, right? So he wraps the blankets around it, picks it up. It's like squirming in the blanket.
No, you didn't, John.
Picks it up, this squirming blanket shadow monster.
No, was this freaking Peter Pan?
And he threw it in the fire.
No, he didn't. John, lay off the booze, buddy. Like, I don't know if you're making your own moonshine or what you got going on that Tennessee property, but that is the most bananas thing I've ever heard.
Right.
That does not make
It's too wild for Lindsay. Too wild for Lindsay. We've gone too far.
For so many reasons, it doesn't make sense.
It is creepy to think about, though. It's such a, like,
if she can do all of that, she can manifest grapes and nuts. She can cause physical harm. Why is she taking the long road with a physical attack of like punching and strangling attempt instead of just stab him or shoot him? Like, if you really want him dead and you don't want to risk your own existence, just do it quick. This sounds like a tale from John of like, men on the edge of their little seats, like, the woman attacked you in the middle of the night.
I know.
And then you threw her onto the ground and you wrapped her up. Yes, please keep the story going.
I think he could have been caught with someone, another woman, maybe someone who.
Well, I hope he didn't really throw a woman in the fire.
I hope so too, but maybe that was his excuse. Like, it was the Bell Witch.
I thought it was the witch. I had to. What else could I do?
Meanwhile, she's
where's
wrapped
the
up in
wife?
the blankets under the bed.
Is she sleeping in another room? Is she? I would assume she's in the same bed. It's not like it's not a manor. They don't have 7 bedrooms. It's like 2 at most in a house like this. And half the kids are sleeping on the floor.
You don't like that part of the story.
No, because it's ridiculous. John, try again.
Well, John did get very sick though shortly after that.
Good.
Oddly.
Good.
Very
what guilt
sick.
Tastes like.
And he ended up passing away. And there's a report that something near him when he passed away, there was like a cup with like this brown liquid that he was drinking or something. I don't know what it was. It's something he was drinking. They gave it to the cat and the cat died. So there's one, like, at least one report out there that he could have been poisoned. Either by the witch or by
I
somebody
think his
else.
wife, there's something going on with that wife. We don't hear enough from her. All this is going on. People are all up in her house's kitchen, like in and out, in and out. And we know at the time the wife's duties were inside the home.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be so annoyed by all the footprints and all. They weren't taking their shoes off before they came in. There's no way. And they smell, and they're eating my food and stomping around my property, filling up my outhouse, sleeping in tents in my yard. I'd be so annoyed. And I'd be like, yeah, you want this to be about you, John? Have a drink. Take a little sip.
And the Bell Witch loved Lucy. Like, she had nothing but compliments to say about her, never attacked her.
Just saying.
Maybe she conjured
I think
the Bell Witch.
I think Lucy is perhaps the witch in all the best sense of the word.
The best sense of the word.
And she has taken back some power.
We're on your side, Lucy.
But also, if I'm 100% wrong about all of this, rest in peace, everybody. I'm so sorry.
Right. Ready to get into some theories?
Sure.
There was one woman in the town who was named Kate. Her name was Kate Batts. So
That's a great name, especially if you might be crazy.
I know.
That's a good name.
So one of the theories is that she was the witch, or she was somehow
just because they have the same name.
Because they have the same name. That's exactly why. But
so
also,
funny.
Kate Batts was a really interesting lady.
How many Kates could there be? It has to be her.
Kate was married to a handicapped man named Frederick Batts. And since he couldn't do any work, she had to run the farm on her own. She didn't have
time to go possess a family.
She probably didn't. But she was, like, the town reports her as being intelligent, sharp-witted, and humorous, strong, independent. So
obviously a witch.
Obviously a witch, right?
Burner.
You can't be smart and funny and independent.
And she's using that poor man who can't possibly know what he's doing.
Yeah, that's the Kate Batts theory, that she was really a witch. Which Lindsay and I are like, nope, scratch it off.
No, she was just awesome.
Here's another theory. A lot of people think that it could have been Betsy, the young girl. Betsy was like 11.
Okay, tell me how. How is Betsy going to do this?
Well, have you heard stories of, like, think of like the Enfield haunting and all these other hauntings that happen around girls who are kind of hitting puberty?
Mm-hmm.
It
is a highly sensitive time, like pregnancy and other times in a person's life, but that's a lot. I mean, that's like maybe some kinetic, like what's the word, telekinesis kind of stuff. Maybe maybe you are, knocking stuff off the counter. You storm out of the room and without touching it, you knock stuff off, or something like that. No, I'm not saying that like that's a normal thing that can happen, but that's what I imagine from this heightened energy. Not all the litany of tricks and talents of Kate.
No, I know. It's ridiculous. But here's a little bit more about Betsy. So Betsy had a boyfriend. She was 11. She had a boyfriend.
I thought she was 13.
Listen, it was a different time. Well, I mean, there was a 4-year span here, so.
As long as the boyfriend's not 42, I think it's okay.
No, he was a young man named Joshua.
Okay.
Who knows? He could have been 18, though. I don't know about these times. But Kate did not like Joshua. She did not want Betsy to marry Joshua, and she would say it often. And Betsy was getting beat up all the time by the Bell Witch. But some people have suggested that the entity might have been born from this emotional turmoil that Betsy was going through, right? She's like, you can't tell me who not to marry, and she's getting beat up and all this family tension. Some people think maybe she conjured something. Also,
I still think the wife then.
Betsy would go visit other people's homes, and the entity Kate, the witch, would show up in their homes too, talking in their homes. That's wild to me.
Okay, that's a bit of the story that's key, I think.
It's a key bit. So Kate, the Bell Witch, people report she would show up in other people's homes, like if Betsy would go and visit the homes. It's one of the reasons people think that maybe Betsy has something to do with this.
That's an interesting piece of the puzzle, that it's with her, it's tied to her, but also causing her harm.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a manifestation of her teenage angst or prepubescent angst.
It could be. Again, if that's the thing.
I say that so flippantly, like that's just a thing we all know that happens, right? And it's not. But
if I'm gonna somehow conjure an entity because of my angst, let's say I have a lot of angst over the dog or whatever, and I end up conjuring an entity. I hope it doesn't beat me up.
Right. I'd be like, I conjured you. That's like your child beating you up.
You work for me.
I made you. Yeah. You work for me. But, you can't always control once you create something, you Frankenstein that stuff. You can't always control it.
Okay, there was another theory that I think is interesting. It was that this whole story started as a cover-up for abuse that was happening in the home. Lindsay's shaking her head. She's nodding her head.
Also would not surprise me at all.
Wouldn't surprise me either.
But all these people came.
Right. And they
are all complicit. All these families, all these neighbors, all these pastors, then shame on them. If they came and they saw this abuse and they somehow were like, well, we're just going to cover this up by saying that's kind of crazy.
Well, maybe they didn't. Maybe they actually believed that the story that the family was telling, the cover up. Maybe they really were like, oh, I'm sorry you're getting beat up by this witch. When really it's.
But didn't they witness the witch or the entity doing these things?
It was always dark. The physical abuse was always in the dark.
No. But I mean the other things.
They would hear the voices day and night.
The visitors heard those things. So it saw the manifestation of objects and things.
Yes, and could have conversations with it.
So it could be two totally separate things. Could be that the abuse is happening, and that energy is also contributing to an entity, and Dad's the abuser.
Mm-hmm.
And
although it's beating up Dad a lot too.
That's what I mean. Dad's the abuser.
Oh, so somebody's like fighting back?
Well, I think something is defending Betsy, and Betsy is being abused physically and sexually by her dad.
Oh, this is so yucky. Or Betsy's fighting back, and that's why John and Betsy have all the bruises and scratches.
And it could have been Betsy in his bed that night.
It could have been.
Attacking him.
Oh, that's yucky to think of, but I think we have to put it out there as one of the possibilities.
And again, if any of that is wrong, I do not mean to offend the souls of the departed. So I apologize if that's not right. But we have known so many stories throughout history of abuse like that in a family. And this would have been at a time where she had nowhere to go. Those kids would have had no one to turn to. And the wife, the mother, would have potentially silenced them out of self-preservation or out of denial. And I think that energy in a house
would be
could stir some stuff up.
Yeah.
And it could be a combination of things. Humans doing things and this energy doing things.
Right, maybe it's both.
Yeah,
right, paranormal
I think it's
and
probably both.
Really horrible real life stuff.
An intertwined relationship, I think.
That's good. That's where you're leaning for your theory?
I think so.
Unless
you tell me something else.
Well, I came up with my own theory. Came up with my own theory that's ridiculous, but it's the only one that makes sense to me.
Okay, let's hear it.
Other than what you just said, because I think what you just said could very well be
puppetry and...
This is what I think. I think it was all from the mom, Lucy. And this is so because it would explain why the entity wanted to kill her husband. And it would explain why it was nice to Lucy and her favorite kids. And it would explain why it was begging Betsy not to get married at 11 years old, right? Like, so I feel like everything's kind of tied to this mom, Lucy. Here's what I think she did. I think she made one of her slaves sit in some slot between the walls, and she would say to the slave, oh, here's what we did when we went out and buried treasure, or here's what the wives have been gossiping with me, here's what I know about the neighbors. Where would all that
knowledge come from the rest of the world? Or
well, she would have known Bible verses maybe really well. She would have known.
It would have been really hard to put on an accent that would not have been recognizable.
That's true. Well, maybe there's a couple stories that's
a great
embellished.
Fun theory.
It's my theory.
That would actually make a really good movie. That theory would be awesome.
Oh, we are claiming it. Don't take our movie idea.
What's his face is gonna take it? The Nope guy and the Get Out guy. Because that would be a perfect kind of story for him to tackle.
It would. Yes, that's
trademark. We're gonna write that script.
Well, we would love to hear your stories. We'd love to hear your ideas.
Has anybody ever experienced or heard of someone that you know that's experienced that kind of phenomenon of heightened emotion generating or trauma generating an entity of some kind? Or, I mean, I know my experience when I was pregnant, both times energy kicked up in my home, And my husband was traveling a lot, and so the home was just darn quiet. And I had my 2 cats, no dogs, and I would hear, like, and I was never afraid. Never scared me. I would just hear it and just be like, But it didn't scare me or freak me out. But I would hear, like, boots walking. Heavy boots walking down the hallway, like, to my daughter's room. Kind of standing in the doorway at the end of the hall in her room, and then back, kind of standing in my hallway, in my doorway, and then just going away. And I always sort of attributed it to like a grandfatherly energy, just like checking in.
Right.
And I could totally see my grandfather, who did have work boots, like just popping in when my husband's out to make sure his girls were okay.
That's neat. And it's also neat that it didn't escalate because...
Oh, no, never. And it only happened, like, when I was pregnant and when Mike wasn't around. And then I do have other family members who experienced things in that home that was interesting. And, every home we've been at, we've had something. Yes, this was in Milton.
I know you've told me how that feels in the house.
And we had...
around the stairwell and stuff.
I was freaked out on the stairwell. But and all my houses that I've been in as an adult have had stairs. That's the only stairwell that gave me the heebie-jeebies every single time I went up the stairs. But other people in that house had experiences. Other people have had experiences in my current house, but nothing super scary. Just odd. The energy, you can't create it nor destroy it. It has to go somewhere.
Right.
And with billions and billions of lives that have been lived, of humans and animals, trillions, then certainly some of that energy is going to show up in modern ways.
So what's the homework again? I forgot it. I'm sorry.
Just if you've had any experience with sort of a manifestation of something due to heightened energy, heightened emotion, if you've heard of a story like that, or if you've experienced something like that, or experience like something with a change in your life, like puberty, being pregnant.
Yeah.
Going through it in some way, shape, or form. Did things kick up for you?
We'd love to hear it. We'd love to hear your story.
Yeah.
And the legend of the Bell Witch remains one of the most terrifying and enigmatic accounts in American folklore. Whether a supernatural phenomenon or an elaborate cover-up for deeper issues with the Bell family, the story will continue to haunt those who hear it.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, class dismissed.
Don't open the door.